My name is Rubita Rain, and I'm 29 years old. Imagine standing backstage, heart pounding, watching your own sister bathe in the spotlight of your work, your ideas, your voice, your everything, while the crowd screams her name, not yours. And when she looks back at you with that perfect smile, the one that hides every betrayal she's ever done, you realize you've been the shadow in her success story all along. If you want to see how this story unfolds, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more unbelievable family drama stories. The beginning, living in her shadow. Growing up, my older sister Lydia was the golden girl. She had everything: beauty, charm, and the kind of confidence that could silence a room. And me? I was Elena, the quiet one, the helper, the one who didn't mind staying behind the scenes. But that wasn't true. I did mind. Every time Lydia got an award I helped her prepare for, every time she took credit for something I created, a piece of me quietly broke. When we were teenagers, I wrote songs in secret. Music was my world. I'd stay up late, whispering lyrics into my phone recorder. Lydia would walk in, pretending to check on me. And then, somehow, a few weeks later, she'd be performing my songs at school events, claiming them as hers. My parents? They adored her. "Lydia's such a talent," Mom would gush. "Maybe Elena can be her manager someday," Dad joked once. Manager, not singer, not artist, just the shadow behind the star. Years later, the betrayal grows. Fast forward 8 years, Lydia was now a rising pop influencer, gaining millions of followers on social media. Her songs were everywhere, but what people didn't know? I wrote most of them. Every lyric, every melody, mine. She'd come to me with that sweet, manipulative smile. "Elena, you're the genius behind the curtain. I could never do this without you." And I believed her, every single time. She'd say she'd mention me someday, but she never did. Not in interviews, not in posts, nothing. I was a ghost in her empire. Until one night, everything changed. The night of the awards. It was the biggest night of her career, the National Music Awards. She was nominated for Song of the Year for a track I wrote in our living room, a song that came from my pain, my story, my words. I watched from backstage, dressed in black, like her assistant. She was glowing in gold, her name echoing through the speakers. And the winner is Lydia Carter for Unbroken Skies. The crowd went wild. She walked on stage, gave a dramatic speech about perseverance and creative inspiration, and thanked everyone, her producer, her fans, her stylist, everyone except the person who had written the song she was holding that trophy for. I clapped with the others, face numb. But inside, something snapped. I realized that night, I wasn't just her shadow. I was her foundation. And without me, she had nothing. The breaking point. After the show, Lydia threw an after-party at our family mansion. I tried to talk to her privately. My voice trembled as I said, "Lydia, you promised. You said after this album you'd tell them I helped." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Elena, you're adorable. People love me. They don't care about who writes what. You should be grateful. You're part of something bigger." Grateful. That word cut deeper than any insult. That night, as I sat alone in her massive living room surrounded by gold trophies and fake smiles, I finally saw the truth. I'd spent my whole life building her success while she erased mine. The plan begins. Something inside me shifted that night. I stopped being the helper. I started being the architect. Over the next few weeks, I quietly gathered everything: drafts, song files, email trails, voice memos, proof that I was the real creator. But I didn't want just revenge. I wanted a rebirth. I began recording my own songs, under a pseudonym, Nova Gray. Same words, same heart, but this time, my voice. I released one track anonymously on a small indie platform. Within a week, it blew up. Millions of plays. People were calling it raw, real, and soul-cutting. Ironically, many even compared it to Lydia's style, not knowing I was the source of her sound. When I saw Lydia's reaction online, her fake smile faltering, her PR team scrambling, I knew this was just the beginning. When my first song as Nova Grey went viral, it felt surreal. For the first time, people were talking about me. Not Lydia, not her awards, not her fake image, just my voice. I watched comments flood in. Whoever Nova Grey is, she's a lyrical genius. This voice feels like pain and rebirth all at once. This isn't music, it's confession. Every word felt like justice. But Lydia didn't take it well. The storm begins. 3 days after my song hit 1 million streams, Lydia called me. Her voice, usually sweet and perfectly controlled, was sharp with panic. "Elena, what the hell is this Nova Grey nonsense?" I stayed calm. "Just a little project I've been working on." "You're competing with me," she snapped. "You're stealing my fans. Do you have any idea what that looks like for me?" I almost laughed at the irony. "Oh, so now you care about someone stealing your work?" I said quietly. Silence. Then she hung up. That was the moment I knew Lydia was scared. The public shift. Within 2 weeks, Nova Grey was everywhere. People made reaction videos, emotional edits, covers. My song, Unwritten Scars, topped indie charts. I didn't post pictures of my face, just my voice, my words, my art. And that mystery drove everyone insane. Who is Nova Grey? Could she be Lydia Carter's ghostwriter? The speculation started spreading like wildfire. I watched Lydia's brand start to crack. Her new single, which she had rushed to release, flopped miserably. People began comparing her lyrics to mine, calling hers soulless and manufactured. And every time someone mentioned Nova Grey, Lydia's forced smile in interviews grew tighter. Behind the curtain. A few weeks later, I met with Ethan Blake, a small-time producer who had discovered my anonymous uploads. He didn't know I was Lydia's sister, just that I was the mystery girl with the haunting voice. When we met in person for the first time, I was nervous. My hands were shaking. He said, "Nova, your songs sound like you've been silenced your whole life, and now you're screaming through music." I smiled softly. That's exactly what it is. He offered to help me produce a full EP. This was it, my real beginning. But Lydia wasn't done with me. Lydia's attack. A month later, as my EP neared release, Lydia went live on her social media with a smirk that froze my blood. She said, "There's a rumor going around that someone named Nova Grey has been copying my songwriting style. I just want to clear the air. Imitation is the greatest form of flattery." I stared at my screen, jaw tight. She was twisting it, again, turning my truth into her narrative. The comments section blew up instantly. Half of them defended her, half accused her of lying. But she wasn't done yet. The next morning, my anonymous accounts were hacked. Every lyric draft, every email, every file I'd stored in the cloud, deleted, gone. Only one person knew where those files were: Lydia. The collapse, then the comeback. For a moment, I broke. I cried for hours, sitting on the floor of my apartment, feeling like the world was folding in on me. All that work, all that pain, wiped away in seconds. But then I remembered who I'd become. I wasn't the quiet shadow anymore. I was light. And light doesn't vanish. It burns through darkness. So I started again, stronger. I reached out to Ethan, told him the truth about who I was, who Lydia was, and everything she'd done. He didn't walk away. He looked at me and said, "Then let's tell your story properly this time." The exposé? 2 weeks later, I released a new single titled The Ghost You Named Sister. It was poetic, raw, and unapologetically real. No masks, no pseudonyms. This time, I released it under my real name, Elena Carter. The lyrics told everything: the stolen songs, the broken promises, the pain of being invisible. People connected the dots fast. News outlets started covering it. Lydia Carter's sister exposes years of song theft. The real voice behind the pop star. Social media went insane. Lydia tried to deny it at first, but I had proof. Timestamps, voice memos, studio sessions with my vocals layered beneath hers. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was truth. Lydia's fall. Her career began to crumble publicly. Brands dropped her. Fans turned against her. Even her management team quietly cut ties. I should have felt pure joy. But what I felt was peace. Not anger, not satisfaction, just silence. The kind of silence that comes after a storm finally ends. End of part 2. But that peace didn't last long, because Lydia wasn't going to let me walk away that easily. When someone builds an empire on lies, they'll destroy everything to keep it standing. And I was about to find out how far she'd go. For a moment, I believed the storm had passed. My truth was out. The world finally saw who Lydia truly was. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. But freedom comes at a cost, and Lydia wasn't the type to lose quietly. I should have known she wouldn't fade away without dragging me through the fire first. It started with a text. One short message that made my stomach drop. "You think you've won? You have no idea what I'm capable of." I stared at my phone, hands trembling. That wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. Within days, Lydia launched a counterattack. She went on national TV for an exclusive interview. Dressed in white, eyes glistening with fake tears, she painted herself as the victim. "Elena has always been jealous of me," she said, voice breaking just enough for sympathy. "I tried to help her. I gave her opportunities, but she couldn't stand being behind the curtain." I watched from my apartment, my heart pounding with rage. She twisted the truth again, turning my pain into her performance. The public was divided. Some believed her. After all, she was the famous one, the face they'd loved for years. But others, they weren't so sure anymore. And that uncertainty gave me strength. For the next month, Lydia and I were everywhere. Headlines, hashtags, talk shows. The world called it the Carter Sisters' War. She released a new song titled "Liar in the Mirror." Everyone knew it was about me. In response, I released Paper Crowns. My lyrics cut deep. "You built your throne on my broken dreams, wore my words like stolen rings. Now your crown is paper thin. Watch it burn from where I've been." That song hit #1 in a week, but success wasn't enough. Because Lydia decided to hit where it hurt most, my reputation. One night, I came home to flashing police lights outside my building. They said someone had reported me for intellectual property theft. Apparently, Lydia had filed a lawsuit claiming I had stolen her material. I laughed bitterly when I heard it. The irony was almost poetic. My lawyer assured me we could prove the truth, but the case went public instantly. Tabloids screamed headlines like, "Elena Carter exposed?" Was Nova Gray a fraud? The pressure was suffocating. Every interview request, every comment online, it all felt like the world was closing in again. But this time, I didn't cry. This time, I fought back. The turning point. My lawyer and I compiled everything. Voice notes, song drafts, even video clips of Lydia rehearsing with my demo vocals playing in the background. We presented them to the court and to the press simultaneously. The moment that evidence went public, everything shifted. A viral clip spread across social media. Lydia in a studio, humming my melody, whispering my lyrics and saying, "Don't tell Elena I used this part." The internet exploded. Fans who once worshipped her turned on her overnight. Justice for Elena trended for days. Even major artists came forward. admitting Lydia had used ghostwriters before. Her empire, built on deceit, collapsed faster than I imagined. But Lydia wasn't done. One night, she showed up at my apartment. No cameras, no fans, just her, trembling, eyes wild. "Elena, you ruined me," she screamed, shoving past the door. "Everything I worked for, gone." I stood firm. "Everything you stole finally came back to me. That's not ruin, Lydia. That's karma." She laughed bitterly, tears streaking her makeup. "You think you're the light now? You think you're better than me?" I looked her in the eye and said softly, "No, Lydia. I just stopped letting you use my light to hide your darkness." She froze. For the first time, she had no words. She left without another glance, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frame. That sound, final, echoing, felt like the closing of a chapter I'd been trapped in my whole life. In the weeks that followed, Lydia vanished from the spotlight. Her social media accounts went silent. Sponsors pulled out. And me? I signed with a major label under my real name. The first concert I performed as Elena Carter sold out in minutes. Thousands of faces in the crowd sang my lyrics, my words, back to me. As the lights hit the stage, I closed my eyes and whispered, "This is what it feels like to exist." For years, I was her shadow. But now, I wasn't just the light she couldn't escape. I was the sun she could never outshine. For months, I basked in the glow of my own success. My music was finally mine. My story was finally mine. And Lydia? She had vanished from the public eye. I thought I had won. I thought I had left her in the ruins of her own making. But shadows never disappear completely. They linger. They wait. And Lydia, she was a shadow I hadn't fully faced yet. The threat returns. It began with subtle things. My website was hacked. Emails went missing. Anonymous threats appeared in my inbox. "You've won a battle, not the war. I'm not done." At first, I ignored them. I had survived so much already. But then, a video surfaced online. It was Lydia. Her hair messy, eyes burning with rage, speaking directly to the camera. "You think you've destroyed me? You think you're untouchable? Elena, you may have the fame now, but everyone will see your secrets soon. You'll wish you'd stayed in the shadows where you belong." My stomach turned. This was personal now. The public game. The video went viral within hours. Fans were shocked. Media outlets jumped on the story. Suddenly, I wasn't just Elena Carter, the rising star. I was the sister at war. Every interviewer, every talk show, every article wanted the drama. The Carter sisters, battle of the bloodline. I realized Lydia wasn't just attacking me. She was trying to destroy everything I had built. But I had learned how to fight smarter. The counterattack. I gathered my legal team, my manager, and my closest allies. We traced the video, verified that Lydia had made it, and prepared a statement. But I didn't want to respond with anger. I wanted precision. I released an official video titled, "The Truth Behind the Curtain." No theatrics, just facts. Every stolen song, every manipulation, every lie Lydia had built her career on. I exposed it publicly, backed with proof. For years, I stood in her shadow. I created the music, the lyrics, the melodies. Lydia took credit, smiled, and thrived while I remained invisible. This isn't revenge. This is truth. The response was immediate. The internet exploded. Millions shared the video. Articles praised me for bravery and honesty. Even the biggest critics couldn't dispute the evidence. The confrontation. 2 weeks later, Lydia showed up at one of my sold-out concerts. I saw her backstage, dressed in black, face pale and tight with fury. "You think you've won, Elena?" she hissed. "I built this. I made you what you are. And now you're turning it all against me?" I didn't flinch. I stood tall. "I made myself, Lydia. You only borrowed my light while pretending it was yours." Her hands trembled. You'll regret this. Regret? I asked softly. The only regret I have is that I didn't do this sooner. She glared, then stormed off. That night, I realized something. Revenge isn't about making someone suffer. It's about claiming your own power. The resolution. Months passed. Lydia's attempts to sabotage me faded. Her social media accounts disappeared. Sponsors stopped calling. Her fans slowly abandoned her. Meanwhile, I focused on my craft. I toured the world, performed on massive stages, and every night, thousands of voices sang my lyrics back to me. I didn't just survive her betrayal, I thrived. Every note I sang, every word I wrote, every song I released was proof that the shadow can become the sun. The emotional closure. One evening after a performance in New York, I sat alone in my dressing room. A message came from Lydia. Short, cold. You won. Congratulations. No excuses, no threats, just acknowledgement. I smiled, a soft, quiet smile. It wasn't joy, it wasn't hatred, it was peace. I had been the shadow in her life for years. Now, I was the light she could never escape. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, fear, or resentment. I felt freedom. By now, the world knew my story. Elena Carter, the sister who had been invisible, who had been erased, who had been the shadow in her own family's empire, was finally in the spotlight. And yet, every triumph carries echoes of the past. Every light casts a shadow. I had fans, awards, headlines. I had the music that once belonged to Lydia, now fully mine. I had my freedom, my voice, my identity. But there was still one piece of unfinished business. It started innocuously. A subtle mention in an entertainment article. Rumors swirl that Lydia Carter is planning a comeback, this time with darker, more personal attacks. My stomach twisted. I had thought she was out of the game, out of my life. But no. Lydia was always strategic, always calculating, always ready to strike when least expected. Then came the first sign, a mysterious package at my studio door. Inside, a single CD with no label. I played it in a locked room. It was my own voice, altered, distorted, but unmistakable. My unreleased demos, my private drafts, my secrets. Someone had stolen them. Someone was planning to weaponize my own art against me. I knew who it had to be. Lydia. But this time, it wasn't just a fight for credit. It wasn't just a fight for the truth. This was personal. I called Ethan Blake, my producer and closest ally. Someone has access to everything, I said, hands trembling. And if it's her, it's going to get ugly. Ethan nodded gravely. Then we have to get ahead of her before she turns this into a public disaster. I spent days tracking the source of the leaks. Emails, cloud storage, even encrypted messaging accounts. I traced it all. Lydia was clever. She had allies I didn't know existed. People still loyal to her brand. People who believed in her image over the truth. But I wasn't just going to react. I was going to turn the game around. I started recording again, but this time, I recorded for strategy, not just expression. Songs that sounded vulnerable. Songs that hinted at a softer side, songs that could lure Lydia out in the open. And then, I waited. 2 weeks later, during a live stream for my fanbase, I noticed something odd. Someone tried to hack the broadcast, injecting a live feed of Lydia on the screen. Her face twisted with rage, her words sharp. "You think you can humiliate me and survive? You will regret every note you've sung." My fans panicked. Comments flooded the screen. Some even speculated this was part of my act, but it wasn't. I calmly paused, smiled at the camera, and said, "Everyone watching, this isn't my first storm, and it won't be my last." Some shadows refuse to vanish. But the light? The light always survives. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about music. It wasn't just about fame. It was a war for control, for respect, for identity. I retreated to my studio for days, planning my next move. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was survival. Every track, every lyric, every social post had to be precise. One wrong move, and Lydia could tarnish everything I had built, and I knew she wouldn't stop. She never stops. But I also knew something crucial. I had grown stronger, smarter, wiser. I had survived betrayal, exploitation, and humiliation. I had turned my shadow into a force the world couldn't ignore. I leaned back in my chair and whispered to myself, softly, almost like a prayer. This isn't over, Lydia. Not yet. You wanted a war? Then let's see who truly controls the light, and who remains in the shadows. Outside my studio, the city buzzed, unaware of the storm brewing in the music world. Inside, I began crafting my most personal, most powerful songs yet. Songs that would not only expose the past, but reshape the future. Because sometimes, being the light isn't enough. Sometimes you have to become a force that even the brightest shadow cannot escape. The air felt heavy that night. The city lights outside my studio reflected off the polished floors, but inside, everything was still, tense, almost waiting. Lydia was coming. I knew it. I could feel it in the shadows that lingered just beyond the doors. For months, she had been plotting, scheming, trying to strike back with every weapon at her disposal. But tonight, she would finally face me directly. A sharp knock echoed through the hall. My pulse quickened. "Enter," I called. Lydia stepped inside, her posture defiant, face hardened, but her eyes betrayed something deeper. Fear. Rage. Yes, but fear too. "You think you've won," she said, voice low and controlled, like steel hiding a trembling core. "I've lost nothing. Yet." I didn't flinch. I simply smiled. "You've lost everything, Lydia," I said calmly. "All the lies, all the stolen credit, all the fame built on my work. And tonight, you'll see how far the light can reach." Her lips curled into a bitter, almost cruel laugh. "You'll regret these words." For hours we faced each other, not with fists, but with truth. Every accusation I had held back, every stolen song, every lie, every betrayal, I laid bare in front of her. "You used me," I said, voice steady. "Every note I wrote, every lyric I gave you, you turned into your crown. But crowns made of shadows crumble." She tried to defend herself, her voice shaking. I did what I had to. Everyone wanted me, not you. You were the invisible one." I shook my head. "I wasn't invisible. I was the force beneath you. And now I choose to be seen, to be heard, to exist fully on my own terms." The room was silent except for our breathing. For the first time, Lydia had no argument, no smile, no mask to hide behind. Then I pulled out a final piece of evidence. A recording, months old. Lydia practicing my unreleased song, admitting it was mine, and speaking about how easy it was to pass it off as her own. I pressed play. Her words filled the room. She froze. The weight of her lies crashed down on her in a way no audience, no fan, no PR team could rescue her from. "This," I said softly, almost kindly, "is why your empire fell. Not because I wanted revenge, but because the truth always finds a way to shine." Lydia sank into the chair across from me, exhausted, defeated. No threats, no drama, no fake tears. Just a silent acknowledgement that the era of shadows was over. I could see the realization in her eyes. She had been dethroned, not by critics, not by fans, but by me. And for the first time, I felt something unexpected. Not satisfaction, not hatred, but peace. I had built myself up from nothing, transformed betrayal into power, and turned invisibility into recognition. The next day, the world exploded. Social media, news outlets, and fans celebrated the rise of Elena Carter. the true voice behind years of stolen art. Lydia faded further into obscurity, her attempts to revive her brand quietly ignored. And I finally felt free. Freedom isn't always loud. Sometimes it's standing on a stage, thousands of eyes watching, thousands of voices singing your words, knowing every note is yours. I had been the shadow for too long. Now I was the light. And that light wasn't just for me. It was proof that truth, perseverance, and authenticity always win in the end. Sitting in my dressing room after my biggest performance yet, I reflected on everything. The years of erasure, the stolen credit, the sleepless nights, the heartbreak, and the anger that once consumed me. And I realized revenge isn't just about hurting someone who wronged you, it's about reclaiming yourself. It's about turning pain into power, betrayal into fuel, and shadows into light. Lydia may have shaped my past, but I had shaped my future. And nothing, not lies, not betrayal, not even family, could dim the fire I carried inside. For the first time in my life, I smiled without hesitation. I was no longer the shadow. I was unstoppable. I was the light. End.